give me a thumbs up when we're off.
Okay, we're going to count down.
Steve's gone live on Facebook. And I think I have a nervous nod from Nicole, which tells me that we're on. Thank you very much to our lovely marketing team who've got us here. And hello to everybody at home and across the world who's joining us for our first candidate Q&A of this year's leadership race. Should we do some applause? Do some applause. Leadership race. There you go. There you go. How about that for energy? So thank you very much for tuning in. We've got 3 of your candidates who are running for full-time officer with us this evening. They'll say hello in a minute. And this is the first of 3 events that will take place now, tomorrow, and on Thursday, which gives students the opportunity to get to know their candidates a little bit better. We've got some questions to ask them. They're going to have a bit of a chat amongst themselves, which I'll be in the way of. And hopefully that will equip students to cast a better informed vote. And are you all excited?
Yes, always. Always, yes.
Excellent. I think we're also all very, very nervous, particularly the union staff in the room, because technically, who knows what could go wrong. But we'll see. So through this event, which will probably not take us up to the hour, I will be prompting the guys to introduce and say hello. They'll be taking some questions that we've already had submitted by students. There'll be that brief topic discussion, and then if we have time, I'll see if we can sneak some extra questions in before they wrap up and round off and say goodnight. As we are live on Facebook, through YouTube and Instagram, we do have some lovely and, if I might say, very attractive union staff who are monitoring comments. So if you do have a question to ask at home, send it through, and if we get chance, we'll see if we can ask it to the candidates live. So, without further ado, every time we do something, I'll just move in a random order as I can between you all. So we'll start with some hellos. I'll give you about 30 seconds-ish just to introduce yourself, try and sneak your slogan in there or whatever. And we'll start down that end with you, Len. That's all right. So over to you.
So I'm Len Stewart. I wanted to run because from my first year I've been involved with the Students' Union, helping officers work on game changers such as No Excuse and Period Pride. The top priorities that for me are mandatory consent modules and my employability campaign called Preparing You. And yeah, hopefully you can empower yourselves by leading with Len.
That was very slick as well, pretty much bang on 30 seconds, so well done. And I should have said, the candidates already know, but we do have some timings to stick to. So if anybody does run over, I will be telling them to keep it short. That's just to keep us to time, because we've got so much to talk about. I'm sure we could be here all evening if I don't occasionally put my foot down, so I'm not being horrible for the sake of it. Alex, should we go to you next?
Yeah, I'm Alice Russell. I run the Cosplay Society. You've probably seen me around campus in a bunch of wigs and sparkles and stuff. My main points are mental health rooms on campus, a space for you to go to and feel safe, accessibility, such as the Cadman lifts being broken, and mainly just making campus a comfortable space for everybody. And I really stand for accessibility for all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. 5 to spare. Keeping within budget. And then we'll finish with you, Kyle.
Hi everybody at home, I'm Kyle Jordan. I'm the Performing Arts. You may see me because I do run the Q Sports Society, so I do flood your Facebook stream with loads of stuff that we're doing. What made me run was being at this uni for the last 3 years. I'm seeing things change massively from COVID to this year, and I want to make sure that things are improving massively for you guys positively. When new influx of students come in, everything needs to be on the game. Priorities, mental health, especially for the guys at the uni. I feel like it massively impacts us when sometimes we don't have the chance to speak about a lot of things. Yes, that's fine. Cool.
Hit your slogan.
30 seconds, yeah. And my slogan is real solutions to real problems.
There you go. Too much to say, I told you all of them. And I probably should have said at the start, my name's Jamie Robertson. I'm a staff member at the Students' Union. As part of my role as Student Voice Manager, I act as Deputy Returning Officer for the elections, which I won't go in and bore you about because nobody cares who I am. But basically, I'm the elections person who works at the union. So I'll be chairing the discussion tonight. So thank you very much for saying hello. I told you it wasn't that scary, was it?
30 seconds, good.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to some of the questions that we've had previously submitted by students. I'll give the guys one each and we'll move through them. We'll probably be able to give you at least, I say, 3 questions each as a minimum. And I'll give you a couple of minutes. We'll be relatively loose with timings because there's only the 3 of you this evening. And feel free to take your time, consider your answer, and use as much as the time as you'd like to. Okay. So we'll go in opposite order this time. So Carl, we'll go back to you for the first question. And the first question off the bat: what is it that made you want to run in the leadership race?
So this year, being part of Res Life and the Q Sports Manager, I am seeing hundreds of students every day, whether that's in the accommodation or knocking about campus, in the lounge, playing pool and everything, and having that conversation, it's kind of made me want to be that voice for you guys, be that person that I'm hearing stuff for your course, for your accommodation, for your placements, for your apprenticeships, everything. I want to be that person to voice to your lecturers, to the members of staff at the union. I want to go to the top of the uni and mention that the stuff that you guys are mentioning is important. And I feel like with my voice, I'm pretty loud. I like to shout a lot of stuff. I like to make sure people are aware of stuff. And that's the reason what made me run, to be fair. Jamie, thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Polite bunch, you 3, all right. Fantastic, thank you. We won't repeat questions, we've done that in the past, but it does get quite repetitive and can make it a little boring, so everybody's going to get a different question each time. And because we're going backwards, so Alice will go to you now for a question. And the next one that I've got on my list is that several of different candidates' manifestos mention other teaching sites, so example Stafford and London. How will you build your understanding of what our, for example, Stafford and London students want and need if you're elected?
I think my main aim on that is to create lots of accessible opportunities for everybody. So at the university we have people who suffer from mental health conditions, things like autism and so on, and most events aren't actually tailored to that. So I'd like to go to each campus in person, talk to people in terms of quiet times where people can shout out, and create a bunch of different atmospheres when people can come along and say their opinions, because it's really important that we give everybody that chance, and I don't think it's personally fair for me to make a plan about what to do for another campus without visiting them and talking to them on multiple occasions.
Thank you. We're going to get lots of questions in, I think, because you guys are rapping through. Which means, Len, we'll come to you for our next question. And that is, we often see candidates running on a platform of club night ideas or alcoholic event ideas, but what else could be done to better engage and support students outside of their course?
So I think it's quite important that we increase the offering of non-alcoholic events on campus. This year in particular has shown that with Verve, non-alcoholic venue can work and is successful with their study nights and everything else that's happening there. It's a good space for societies to meet. I also want to do an extension on the Give It a Go scheme system even, where anybody can sign up, mixed teams for friendly sporting events. One such idea for that would be something like UV dodgeball with rolling teams. You can set 3 courts up in the sports centre, and that feeds quite nicely into staying healthy with mental health through activity as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So we'll do one more round of questions, and then we'll move on to our topic discussion. Ooh. No, just me. Great. So, Carl, we'll go back to you. We'll stick to the order for now, just because that seems balanced. Here's possibly a more detailed question. So, how would you, if you're elected as officer, make sure that the feedback students give to their course reps will affect current students and not just the years that follow them? So, I guess acting on student feedback right now immediately, so it affects the people that are here now.
Yeah. So obviously with the student reps there, I would say their voice is as important as anybody, the full-time officers and students. But I would like to make sure that there is ongoing meetings with the officers, with members of staff, even getting the academics involved with that, and just publicising like people's feedback, whether that's in person, so maybe pop-up stalls, get the reps getting pop-up stalls, so students just interact with them. So obviously it may not be students are giving feedback is because it may come across too formal. So giving that chance, that opportunity for student reps to be knocking about on campus, maybe like once, twice a month, just to give that chance. And I study this, or you study like say myself performing arts. I've got a performance arts rep. I'd be basically like, well, this is the stuff that's going on. I want to see what's going on. Give you feedback, and then obviously we'll get into them. And get the feedback, and then obviously if the academics can join us, what I would push is because academics need to know what's going on. I would get the chance of maybe doing once a month, even once a fortnight, for the student officers, for the reps, for even students to join. Yeah, pretty much. If that made sense, yeah.
Did to me.
Yeah,
I'm sure people will let us know if it didn't today. Fantastic, thank you. So now we'll go to Alice again. I'm losing track myself. And I will go back to my list of questions. So following the pandemic, engagement across a lot of different universities and students' unions is down across the country. So what do you think you might be able to do to bring engagement from students back to pre-lockdown, pre-pandemic level?
I think the main point is to listen to students' ideas. I've heard from a lot of students, they feel like they're voicing their opinions and they're not being heard and responded to. And also, after the pandemic, everything was just very quiet for a long time. People were afraid to come out. People still are kind of nervous about it. And I think it's about creating lots more non-alcoholic events of different natures, and really pulling together. Somebody suggested to me bringing the beer garden idea back, and I think that would be such a lovely thing to do. And smaller events that aren't club nights but are engaging for a range of people, as well as more online events, and making sure we're still using remotely as a platform to go and do things. It was such a great thing, and to use something like that to its advantage can really help include people.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I'm very excited because I'm looking at my screen because I think we've got a question that's been sent through from, was it Instagram? Nicole is nodding. I'm going to try and get Nicole to say something out loud on camera. She's giggling. No. So we have a question that's come through from Instagram. So therefore I'll give this one to you, Len, which is, could you describe any work you've done with the LGBT plus network or broader LGBT plus community?
Yeah. So in my first year, I was the LGBT comms officer. The following 2 years, I ran the LGBT network. In my first year running the LGBT network, I set up a conference which had only over 30 different universities attend our university in February, which taught best practice for LGBT students on campuses across the UK. This year, today in fact, I've attended a protest against conversion therapy in the UK, along with other aspects, and then I attend the Trans Day of Remembrance walks every year as well.
Thank you very much, Len. And that was good. That felt like 2 minutes. I actually forgot to press start.
I can keep going if you want to start.
No, we'll keep it fair. We'll keep it fair. But thanks very much. So what we'll do now, we've got plenty more questions that have come through, and I can see Nicole writing down again, so we might even have another one from there. But what we'll do, we'll switch to our topic discussion. So this will be a little looser, and you can talk to each other rather than just throwing your answers out there. So I'll shift my big head out of the way a little bit. And really, it's just over to you to have that open discussion on a topic that we know matters to students. So these are the kinds of things that we know matter to students through the Students' Union's work generally, but also because they are patterns that appear in manifestos every year. So just out of shot, we have Anthony from the Student Voice team, who is on some kind of randomizer, who's going to pick one out of the hat, as it was. So, Anthony, what's the topic that these guys are going to be discussing?
We've got university communication. Where do you think there are issues, and what do you think you would do to improve them?
There we go. So I will slip back so that you can all kind of see each other. And it's just over to you to have a chat about university communication. So off you go.
Where do we start? We can talk, I'd say, I think one big communication issue that I saw in the last 3 years was when Verve became a non-alcoholic venue and the stream across Facebook.
I think the difference there is Verve is union and not university.
Yeah.
So I think a big issue for university and communication is exceptional circumstances. I think there needs to be greater transparency in the whole system of that. I know of students who have been approved for it, but they don't find out for 2 weeks afterwards, and it's just 2 weeks of stress that isn't necessary.
Yeah.
So I think different departments in the university need to be sort of pushed to be a bit more proactive with actually communicating with students directly in those instances.
How would you say that we put that into a plan?
Definitely.
No, how do we put that into a plan though? For like, if students are not getting the chance in receiving their mitigated circumstances, and say the lecturers or the department's not listening, how can we then enforce and make sure that happens?
I personally think that there needs to be an online system with traffic lights, and every time you complete a step in the process of it, it lights up and it's done. Because what happens is a lot of students don't realise how many steps there are in applying these things, and it's not just exceptional circumstances, it's learning support statements, and it's getting meetings with lecturers, and there's steps in the processes you have to take to get to people, and there's obviously a chain of hierarchy, and I don't think people realise that. And I think if we could have a system where students could be like, I've done this, and then it lights up and takes you on to the next step, that would create a really clear thing, especially for students with ADHD and autism who struggle to keep on top of things. That would make it a really inclusive system.
Yeah. I mean, into something you just said there, though, I think the lecturers are probably the most responsive. In my experience, at least, my lecturers are far more responsive than any other part of the university, because I think they have the most face-to-face time with students. And then going back to what you said about how we could put it into a plan, I think talking to the head of departments, head of student services, to try and increase awareness of frustration. If it is a frustration for students, which I believe it is, raise the awareness of that to then create a better service for students as well.
Yeah. I think, just obviously moving on to, again, the head of communication, I think as well, for me, in my experience, is just receiving the information from lecturers, whether that's on Beacon app or Blackboard or in person or emails. Sometimes I've received... What was you say?
It's all confusing, the amount of different ways they try and communicate.
Yeah. It's just like I've sent out emails and I haven't got a response in like 3 or 4 weeks, and then deadline is up, and then obviously it's too late. It's just working on that. On that ground is probably important. Well, in my eyes at the moment, is making sure that the day-to-day running of students' life, whether they're in 6 hours a week to 40 hours a week, it's just making sure that surrounding of communication is getting enforced in a great way, instead of missing an email or the lecturer apparently is too busy. It's that. And again, I do agree with what you're saying. There's too many areas of communication, too many platforms, I guess, that they're using to push out communication. So maybe someone doesn't use Beacon, then what happens then? Like they're missing the information that. But what's everybody's opinion on Beacon?
I don't like it.
I think it's very confusing, especially with the codes assigning to lectures, because what lectures will sometimes do is hold the code till the end. But
They hold the code as ransom over a class.
but
It's
you
not
have
acceptable.
a student who has an LSS that says they can leave a room if they're overwhelmed or they're having a panic attack, and suddenly they're put in a position between, do I choose to get my attendance mark, or do I choose to go and take care of my mental health? And I think that's what Beacon has started to cause for students, in a choice picking between their own mental health and their attendance.
See, with the code system for my course individually or my class, is sometimes the lecturers tend to forget to put out the code, and then it's our attendance mark that gets affected, and then obviously comes down to, again, the communication is like you check, or like the course leader or the module leader or whoever is asking you why you wasn't in that day. Well, you was, just the code just didn't get released.
I think the amount of times you actually have to sign in a day can affect your percentage of attendance as well. If you're on a course that only has 3 modules, but that's your whole day, and you miss one, that's a third of your attendance gone for the day. Whereas if you're on my course and I attend 4 or 5 or 6 different things in a day, and 2 don't go in, your attendance, you're still at 60% attendance for the day, even if it's forgotten. So it starts flagging things.
I experience that problem a lot with my chronic illness. There is times where I just can't come in, and I work remotely and I meet with my lecturers on Teams, but I don't get the attendance mark, and I only have 3 times I have to sign in a week. So if I miss 1 lecture a week, which is in my learning support statement, I'm instantly below the university's wanted attendance.
Yeah, I've seen as well across Facebook, or when students can't attend on campus due to like an illness or mental health or anything, and they've sent out communication about that, and the lecturers, I'm assuming now, correct me if I'm right, but now they have to record their lectures now. Hannah, would you like to? Is that?
I think. So Hannah, our current president, is off screen, but as Hannah's also a candidate, I'll try and answer that one. That's all right, no problem at all. I think one of the things that the union's working on at the minute is trying to understand what can be the consistently applied approach from the university. So depending on we deliver lots of different kinds of courses at Staff's Uni, and therefore one size rarely fits all in terms of the experience that people have. But actually, one of the things that the office team have been working on this year is trying to understand, well, what is the kind of standard practice and what's the policy that backs that up. So that might be your experience, but it would be interesting to hear whether that's your experience, because it might be completely different for different students. So that one's a bit of a work in progress in terms of everything will definitely be recorded or not, if that's helpful.
My experience has been pretty good with my lecturers. They've been very understanding. However, I can't have lectures streamed to me, because if anybody's been in the Henrian studios, they are a big studio for all art courses and graphic design courses, and it's very loud, it echoes, it's probably the size of the union with no ceiling separating the rooms, and you have 2 to 3 lectures going on at once. So I love the idea of the system, and I really support remote learning for students who need it. But in situations like that, there needs to be a way to find how to do it without there being too much feedback and stuff, because there are students that need captions on Teams, and if we're talking about students with hearing impairments, suddenly they can't work remotely because there's too much background noise, and Teams captions aren't good enough anyway, never mind any background noise. So although my lecturers are really supportive and do everything they can, the environment that we're in from the university doesn't allow for remote learning to be as much of an option. I spoke to DSA about it as well, and they said the same thing, it just wouldn't be viable as an option in the environment.
I mean, what about students with ADHD that really struggle with online learning?
I think there needs to be a balance of, for example, I'd like the choice to be able to work online with my disability, because right now my choices are I come onto campus, exert myself too much, and I'm dead for the rest of the week, or my choices are don't get an attendance mark. But if we could add that third choice in of you can work remotely and get your attendance mark and get somewhat of a lecture to you, it might not be the same quality as learning in person, but it's better than not being there at all. And I think it's giving students that choice, which makes it accessible, because if you have ADHD and you need to go in, that's totally fair and, you know, really understandable. But also, if you have a chronic illness and you're in too much pain and you can't get in, you should be able to work from home.
Your experience with your course?
My experience with my course, as a student with ADHD, I struggle heavily with online learning. All of my lectures this year are online. All of my tutorials are in person. I probably couldn't tell you anything that has happened within any of my online lectures this year.
So it's getting the balance of remote to in-person learning, because with what I study is performing arts, and trying to do performing arts online.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, you're on a big screen and you're in. It wouldn't make sense. Obviously, say suffering with mental health at times throughout the 3 years at uni. When you can't go in, the lecturers state that they won't recap what they do each day, because you've got 7 weeks to start from reading a play to executing a live performance, and we're in pretty much 40 hours a week. We have to get called sometimes during the weekends, so it's balancing the financial aspect as well of not working. But so it's the communication with academic and lecturers. It's getting the understanding of all students and not just some students. Like the students that can come in and operate as normal, they're fine, but it's still having an understanding of the students that can't operate on campus. They have to do remote learning, or for any other reason, like you say, you do art or you work in the Henrian building, and obviously you study
I do business management.
Business management, so having a range of courses as well. Like times, again, like I said, are changing, and sometimes I feel like communication is not. It's kind of getting just stuck in a way that it's always been, but since COVID, things have massively changed, and it's just that now to have an understanding of a lot of students may, like you said, during about COVID, people not wanting to come outside is because it's understandable, COVID, whatever other reasons that a student may have, COVID may be one of them, and adding on another, so they may not want to come outside still, but still getting the opportunity to still access full resources needs to be an action for everybody, not just some people. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that, but then I think there's also a lot of students that want a return to normality, as it were. I mean, I know if I wanted courses online, I would have gone for the Open University, not a university that has buildings and a campus.
Yeah.
I think from talking to students, there are a lot of other people that feel that way as well.
I think like coming onto campus for the people would be nice, but like for normality, what is normality?
I think that going back to.
So we're just
Sorry.
just having some technical issues with our microphone, which are being expertly handled by Steve, our marketing manager. Slight distraction for these guys.
Apologies, guys. Back home.
But hopefully that'll mean that you can hear us all now. But we'll come to Alice probably for the final point on this one. So Alice, go back to you.
I don't believe going back to normality creates equity. While we should be doing in-person learning consistently, and that should be the standard, we should be using remote learning to enhance that for everybody. For me, equity is very important about giving everybody what they need to succeed and looking at that over equality, because equality is good, but equity is what we should strive for as a university. And I don't believe going back to just in-person learning creates an environment that promotes equity.
Right, thank you to all of you. Thank you to Steve for your audio efforts there. It's wonderful. And that was absolutely fantastic. We covered a lot of ground there. We started with the topic of communication, which Anthony kindly randomly pulled out for us. And I think through your discussion, we covered a lot there. We spoke a lot about communication, but also a big discussion there on blended learning and how to get that balance right, and lots of different experiences just from 3 people in the room. So that's prompted me to give a little plug of this is the kind of work that the Students' Union does generally. We want to get students together and hear what their experiences are to try and come to those conclusions and mutual agreements about, well, what's going to be great for everybody's experiences. So this is what the Students' Union does, so please get involved with that forever and for all time. But also lots of discussion and ground covered there, so hopefully we'll hear more of that over the next 2 days. We are going to be able to fit in some extra questions, so I'll do another round or maybe 2 of questions for you to just answer and fire out, and then we'll come to a quick sum up again from everybody. There you go. Thank you very much. So this time, if I start with you, Alice, for the next question. Excuse me. So, what do you think is the biggest recent success that the Students' Union has supported, and how would you build on it?
I personally think the biggest success recently has been within the menstrual care and the gender-neutral bathrooms pushing. You know, there's been a period blocker release this year, as well as lots of just menstrual hygiene kind of information put out there, and it's in most of the bathrooms. How I would personally add on to that is I would start to pull away from it being called feminine hygiene and into menstrual hygiene, making it more transgender inclusive, getting sanitary bins in all the bathrooms, and making a system that allows for discrete collection of period products, because menstrual care affects more than just women, and I think it's really important to look at that in terms of inclusion and accessibility. And while the work the union has done this year is great, and work like this does take time, I think the next step is in looking at how can we make transgender students, or students who aren't gender conforming, if that's the right word, more comfortable in collecting those kind of things, and just generally engaging and talking about it, and talking about the disabilities associated with it, such as endometriosis and so on.
Excellent, thank you. So now if we go to Len next, trying to keep the order random, it's difficult with 3.
Yeah.
So we have a large demographic of commuter students at Staffs, so how can the university cater to them more?
Okay, so I want to push for more all-gender facilities. Within those, I want more showers, more parking on campus as well, more facilities for actually storing bikes instead of 2 lockups on campus that I'm aware of. One outside Mellor, one down near the Catalyst. Yeah, I think that's about it really. It's that it comes to mind right now. But for those who are local and cycling in, I think there should be changing in shower facilities. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. So then we'll go to Kyle for another question for you. Society committees do loads of hard work that benefits lots of students. How can they be better supported and recognised?
Okay. So as I am a committee that stands on Q Sports, I do understand the amount of stress, sweat, tears, the pain that the society can bring, just making sure that the engagement is up and flowing, but also that the students are happy. And it starts with like the finance, the membership fee and everything else. But for committees, I feel like just the start of the year where you just have that block of training and that's it. I don't feel like that is what's needed. I feel like an influx of training throughout the year to help you reach out to venues, propose emails for sponsorships, for like basic mental health training, to knowing how to put on an event like charity events. So Q Sports have done 3 charity events this year, but having that chance of the training of knowing how to put on a charity event to support your local communities or something that you're very passionate about is needed. For committees, it's nice that we have the chance of having 4 committee members now, so welfare, comms, finance and manager, because it's just now that the support there is an extra person of welfare, so somebody can turn to that one person when every other 3 people are busy doing other stuff, that it's just, I need a chat about something, and that person can stand and help and guide for what you need. Again, with committees working as well, it's getting that link to other societies, so reaching out to one another, helping each other promote other stuff, doing inter-league stuff, so maybe like I said, like UV dodgeball, netball, football, Q sports, cheerleading, anything, just help each other out to support stuff. Cool, that's everything. Thank you, Jimmy.
We have 10 seconds left to go. Yes. Oh, there you go. Great, we'll do one more round before we close up. So I think now I'm back to you, Alice. So are there any ways in which you have contributed to the university community before you ran in the leadership base this year?
I've run the Cosplay Society for 2 years as manager. I have put on a series of events, not just for cosplayers, but I worked with the international students this year, and we went along to society and we made badges together, and that really helped to bring together 2 very different groups of people we have in common and how much these events can be done and should be done by societies. With the Cosplay Society, we've done a cosplay disco one night at LRB, which was great, and it was a really good environment because the music wasn't as loud, and we gave everyone glow sticks and we had themed cocktails, and that was something that I feel I put a lot of time and energy into creating for maybe not a larger group of students, but some students who really needed that opportunity to get out and enjoy that experience, but not as sensory overwhelming. And I've also recently joined the chair of the Disabled Students Network, and I feel like I've contributed a lot towards that. Things like looking at disability awareness and how the lifts in Cadman have been broken for nearly 6 months in terms of disabled access and disabled students that have to be going to around the back of the courtyard. And that's something I'm personally really working hard on pushing to get fixed, because things like that are becoming unacceptable at this point. And I feel like I just come and engage with the union a lot and really take a lot of different opportunities, such as the international students, to get to know different people and really make everybody's experience the best I can.
Wonderful. Thank you. So now we'll go back to Len as I search for my next question. Do you think you're well equipped to lobby the university through its formal boards and committees?
Yeah. During my time running the LGBT network, I sat on the university's LGBT corporate group. Through that, we've worked on Stoke Pride, Birmingham Pride, getting funding for both of those events. Pronoun badges, the first 2, lots of pronoun badges coming in. I've worked on the ally scheme, as well as getting the funding towards that as well. I think I'm quite well equipped and prepared to talk to higher up execs within the university in general as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So Carl, we'll go to you for our last question. I'm just going to do a quick check, see if we've had anything else through social media. No. Kyle, what is the university missing in supporting its parent students? And like I said, nobody's seen these questions before, so take that moment, don't worry.
I would say, to start off with, obviously, parent students have a lot of responsibilities obviously with their children and coming to the university, they're making that change to better their life and obviously the ones that they've got with them. And I'd say the nursery that is getting built will hopefully and definitely support them. But I guess the communication, I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't understand the what they personally would go through. But as speaking to parents who are on my course and knocking about, I feel like communication is a big one with the lecturers and just making sure that the responsibilities that the students have, that that the lecturers are aware of, just in case if something does happen where the parent needs to go home or for whatever reason, whether that stay at home with the child, that stuff is approved, and if it comes under mitigated circumstances or something, then that could be something that we could possibly look at, or even if the remote learning is an option, depending on what the student studies. But to be honest, I wouldn't know what the parents are missing because I'm not a parent. But I would love to work with parents who are on campus, or commuters, Stafford, Shrewsbury, London, apprenticeships, anything, just to see what is the issues that you guys are missing or what you guys are wanting for yourselves. If you're on campus, let's have something on campus for you guys in place, or if you're commuting or you're knocking about, I want to make that change for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, we've reached the end of the questions that I've got available for this evening. So now I'm going to go back to each of our candidates who've joined us tonight and just give them a minute or so to round up, wedge in anything that you hoped to cover tonight but maybe haven't been able to, the questions that you've been asked, and just give everybody who's tuned in that little reminder of who you are and why they should vote for you. So again, trying to go back to a random order. So if we go to Len to start us off and give you about a minute.
Okay, so a couple of points that I wanted to touch on this evening that we obviously haven't covered is neurodiversity inclusion throughout the university, being able to try and create an atmosphere of inclusion and awareness within the academics, which will then obviously affect students. Sports and societies, I want to introduce or reintroduce the spotlights, where officers go down with a videographer from the union, create a vlog for your events or sessions, and as such that goes out to the students to raise awareness for your student group. And then the big one that I'm running for this year is my Preparing You campaign for employability, which will aim to contact all leaving students and offer career advice and sessions with the aspect of looking to get you into graduate roles when leaving university, with that being followed up with seminars, online seminars on employability, and that's work I've already started through my job at the Career Studio. So yeah. That's
your time, so I don't know if you want to hit us with your slogan or anything.
Lead with Len, check out the website, all that.
Fantastic. So we might as well work down this way. So Kyle, over to you.
So yes, topics that I obviously haven't had the chance to mention to you guys is the mental health training. So with my course, I have 2 mental health trained lecturers. I don't feel that's enough. I feel like lecturers, course leaders, module leaders, and everything need to be at least be a step into that mental health training to help you guys wherever you are on campus, off campus, to support your needs. I also wanted to mention about the Access Fund for societies. I have mentioned this quite a lot to people and peers around, is this Access Fund could interlink with the Experience Fund and the Hardship Fund. I've already started talking with the sports department and everything just to see what the grasp is with money, because obviously with sports, I guess, I know it's £60 a year, but some of you guys may not be afford that. Regardless of household income, I want everybody to be able to apply and maybe even get this grant where you can have a hobby with this fund instead of choosing rent or food. So I also wanted to talk about accommodation as well, is moving from your on-site accommodation. Now that may be tough if you say, for instance, COVID, or you're not a person that engages a lot of people. I want to be able to put something into place where you can move on and feel comfortable in doing it.
And that's your time.
Yep.
I don't know whether you want to hit your hashtag again.
Hashtag real solutions to real problems. Vote Kyle.
There you go, Alice. And now you get to do that. So a minute for you, just to say goodbye to everyone.
So my main point I'm focusing on is mental health rooms around campus. A lot of students don't feel safe coming onto campus because of anxiety and mental health, and there isn't a space to go to right now. And I think that would really help just everyone. Anyone can get overwhelmed at any point in the day. Anyone can get some bad news, and there needs to be a place for us to go to. And I think that's really important. I also talk about accessibility a lot, but I want to remind people accessibility isn't just disabilities. It's if you have financial problems, it's if you commute to campus, it's if you're a parent, it's if you have anything that makes your life at university more difficult. Accessibility does affect you, and it isn't a word that is just associated with disabilities. And my slogan is, I can't continue to stand for an inaccessible university, but I do hope you'll sit with me and vote for Alice.
I'm fairly sure these two went for a thumbs up. If you want to throw that.
Oh yeah.
On flick.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I think you all did very well. I think we should give them another little round of applause there for our... Particularly because you're the first night up of candidates as well. So well done. I think some really good discussion, some great answers. So thank you for giving your time and introducing yourself to everybody. We're now wrapped up for this candidate Q&A. But as I said at the very beginning, we do have 2 more to go. So the same time, 5 p.m, streamed in the same way on Facebook and Instagram. You can join different candidates tomorrow and Thursday evening to learn what they've got to say in terms of their ideas, opinions, experiences, and why they think they're the best person to lead staffs. And although I'll say this at every Q&A, please don't forget to check out all of our candidates' full manifestos online at staffsunion.com/vote or /leadership race. And obviously next week, between 10 a.m. on Tuesday the 3rd of May and Thursday the 5th of May at midnight, make sure you cast your vote online. So thank you very much. I'm now going to make all of these 3 do a very awkward wave as we say goodbye.
Bye guys.
Bye.